Okay. I'll just pop the link to the agenda in the chat for anyone else who hasn't got it at their fingertips. There you go. Whakataka te hau ki te uru. Whakataka te hau ki te tonga. Kia mā kina kina ki uta. Kia mā taratara ki tai. E hi a ke ana e a tākura. He tio, he huka, he hohu, tihe, Māori ora. Welcome everybody to our April hui on Zoom, a smaller number than usual. And at some point today, we're going to have an exploration of that. But I thought we'd start with a quick check-in. I was doing a facilitation on Zoom training not so long ago. And there was a really neat little tool that used a chat called a chat storm. And I don't know if anyone else had seen this before, but I hadn't. So I thought we could do a chat storm this morning to check in all at the same time. So this is how it works. We have a minute to type in a response to the prompt question, but we don't press go. We wait until the end of the minute and then we all press go at once, and then there's this big storm of answers. And then we have another minute to respond to people in a one-on-one kind of a way. So I'll talk you through that in a minute. But for now, if you're willing, if you just take a minute to just think about how you are in yourself, how you're going, how you're feeling today, what things you're having to put aside to engage in this meeting, that kind of personal stuff. And just type it in the chat for a minute, starting now. But don't press go, don't press send.
What's happening?
Okay, so everybody who was there for that, press go. So you'll see lots and lots coming up. And what you can do if you'd like to respond to somebody is to click on their name. So I can see Deb's at the top there, and I could click on her name, and you'll see down the bottom of your chat screen that instead of saying everyone, it will now say her name or whoever's name you choose. So this is just a short time to connect with somebody, and it could be to respond to what they've just said, or it could be because you wanted to connect with them anyway, or it could be somebody you don't know and you just want to say hi. So just take a couple of minutes to send those private messages. So next to their name, it should say privately, and that way you can just have these one-on-one conversations with people. So just another minute for that. Enjoy. Okay, thanks everybody. Okay, let's keep going with this chat storm idea because it seems to be working quite well. And those people who missed it at the beginning, in a chat storm, what we do is take a minute to type our responses to the question, but we don't press go until the end of the minute, and then we shoot off all together and have a little while to respond. It's quite nice to quite a way to use to get a lot of information in a short amount of time. Okay, so what could our next question be? How are you feeling about the climate forum at the moment is the next question. Yeah, so a very broad question. What are you thinking and feeling about the climate forum and your involvement in it at the moment?
Julie, just a quick question. Before people start typing, you'll need to click on the down box and make sure everyone that it says.
Oh,
everyone.
yes, thank you. Yeah. Yeah, you don't want to send that to the last person you messaged only. So you can click anywhere in your chat you see the word everyone, or you can click on the drop down and choose everyone. So it should say to everyone, and then you have your message underneath. Thanks, Debs. A few more seconds before we all press go. Okay, press go. All right, so just a minute to read through those. If you do want to respond to someone individually, feel free. Thanks, everybody. It's really important to keep in touch with where we're at as we keep ploughing forwards. And as we can see, there's a lot of different perspectives and feelings and thoughts about where we're at and where we need to go next. I'll take a lot more time to think about what I've just read over the next month or so. Okay. Just in case anyone here wasn't in the last hui or hasn't caught up by email, at the last meeting we decided to restructure the groups of the forum around the 7 topics in our brand shiny new amazing climate action book. And each of the groups, each of those topics would choose a number of actions to work on over the next 12 months. So those topic-based groups are what we grow and eat, what we make, buy and waste, how we get energy, where we live and work, how we move ourselves and our stuff around, how we support nature and store carbon, and how we stay healthy and connected. And alongside those groups are a number of what we have called until now, and probably still will, the functioning of the forum groups. And so we've had a science, tech and research group, we've had an admin and finance group, we've had a strategic communications group, and other working groups have popped up along the way, like engaging with councils' long-term plans, and a new one that's just cropping up now, which is about working with schools. And the unique parts of those groups is that they, or not, the defining characteristic, I suppose, of those groups is that they work across all the topics and they support the work of all the topic groups. So that group about working with schools is going to probably coordinate an approach to schools across all of those topics. So we don't have each school being targeted by each of the groups and so on. So those functioning of the forum groups kind of evolve as they're needed, but there are some suggestions that have been put forward that should be there on a standing basis. Whether or not they're actively used, we should consciously hold the space for those. And that's the ones that we've had so far: the strategic communications, the admin and finance, and the science, tech and research group, but also a couple of others. One is around rangatahi and youth. One is around iwi, to support the representatives in that iwi leadership group. And one is around well-being of the forum itself. And that's about bringing people in, new people in to find a place to belong, supporting anyone who feels like they need more support, and helping us to grapple with our feelings around the issues that we're dealing with as well. So it's quite a broad piece of work, but it seemed to be something that combined a lot of the well-being groups that we had up until now. They ended up working quite a lot on how the forum works. So that's hopefully going to bring in a lot of that as well. So what Jessie and I thought we would do this morning is to offer some space for our existing groups to update on where they're at, and then to think about and then to break into those new 7 topic groups and have a discussion based on those groups to see where they think they might be heading towards over the next 12 months. And it may be that you see yourself more as fitting in within those functioning of the forum groups, and you can just bring that extra perspective and be a bit of a liaison this week, trying to get some sense of what the topic-based groups are thinking about and how your group might support. Does anyone have any thoughts or concerns or extra things they want to add in there? At the very end, we've got an item on the long-term plans from council, but is there anything else that people want to, any burning issues that they feel we should be talking about this month? No? Okay, cool. In that case, let's crack on. So if anybody here would like to kick off an update from their group, whether or not they're the coordinator of the group, if you've been part of it, I would love to hear from you about where our existing groups are at. Thanks, Kelly.
Hi everyone, I'm from Resources and Waste. We've got a pretty active group, even though we've got a couple of people overseas at the moment, long term, but they still feed in. Our main focus at this point in time is to get the Repair Cafe up and running, which we are doing in conjunction with the council, Habitat for Humanity and the St Stephen's Church people. So we're going to be using the old urban club, suburban club, for our base. That's the 29th of May. Carlo Wiegand and I are the sort of 2 most active people on that at the moment, mainly because, oh God, someone's here. hang on, it's my bee lady. No, she'll have to do without me. So
I can carry on if you want to,
yeah,
Kelly.
it's all right. We're doing that, and the other thing we're doing is getting our submission to put into the council. So quite a few of us have done them individually. So those that we've got a lot of other things going on, but those are the two most current issues that we're working on, and we need a lot more people to join us. Not so much for organising, but for actually getting people on board to help with the repair and stuff, particularly things like electrics. Anyway, that's another subject, so I'll stop now.
Thank you. That's really interesting to hear.
Just one other thing on that group is we already had a meeting with sorry, I've forgotten his first name. Bruce, yeah. Bruce, in terms of how we can work together in the new sort of business and waste and resources.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, we think we can make that work.
Any other of our topic groups like to share about where they're at and what they've been up to? Thanks, Jack.
I can try to speak for the energy group, although it hasn't met in quite a while. But I think there's two overriding objectives with respect to energy coming up. And one is, as the other groups in the forum evolve their plans, to keep in mind the importance of energy conservation in whatever kinds of activities they're going to be doing. So if it's about transport, it's not just a mode shift, it's also about reducing the overall need, for example. Same for agriculture, buildings, waste, whatever. So energy conservation is a topic that I'm hoping all groups will think about it as they go forward, and thinking perhaps the energy group can come up with some suggestions about how to think about reducing energy demand in their areas. So that's one thing. The other thing that I think is a major priority for energy is, how do we get some community owned and operated renewable energy projects going? I don't have the answer to that, but if anyone's interested in that or has any ideas, we'd certainly welcome that, because I think in the long term, that's an essential direction that we need to go with respect to energy. Thank you.
Thanks, Jack. Chris, I saw you before. Welcome.
Yeah. Okay. So our group is basically in a holding pattern, I think, waiting for the new group to start up. We've had one Zoom meeting over the last month. The discussion mainly around actually Snowdon's Bush, and now that they've got the funding to buy that extra piece of land off the church, it needs to be replanted, and so I had to plant that in a climate resilient way, given that there's a water shortage in that area. But we don't have a sort of a community group to lead that in Brightwater, so that's a bit of an impasse there. But otherwise, waiting for the new group to start up, I think.
It's really interesting. I might send you an email on that, actually. Thank you, because I live out in that direction. Lovely, thank you. Any other topic groups?
Perhaps I could
Sure.
talk about transport. We haven't been very active, but we have put in submissions to the Climate Commission and also the long-term plans, which took a bit of work. And also the Richmond program business case. We've been involved in that, which is useful. But yeah, it's a bit of a confession, really. We haven't been doing much, and yeah, would like lots of action on transport, but we don't we haven't got ideas of how to get there really, other than submissions at this stage.
Thanks, Peter. Who have we not heard from the topic groups who are here today? Bruce, hi, welcome.
Had her hand up for a while.
Sorry, Joe?
Gillian Pollock has had her hand up.
Thank you. There's more people I can't see on my screen. Right, expanding. Bruce, over to you, thanks.
Okay, Businesses for Climate Action, I would say full steam ahead. A very good event at PIX, and that was, I guess, largely for business groups, and that was well attended, I think around 150, and there seemed to be quite a lot of interest in that. Our group recently had a strategic planning meeting, which I think went well and was time well spent. Various other things, submissions, and I think we've got a measuring a business carbon footprint event going on as we speak, and yeah, working a bit with, or at least staying connected with Project Cookery and Chamber of Commerce, and that seems worthwhile. And meanwhile, yeah, thanks for the mention before, yeah, because that group has really been, or the forum part of that group has really been only me connecting with that outside group. I'll now be connecting with the what we make, buy and waste group, and I'm looking forward to that. So thanks for that. I think that's going to work well. That's me.
Thanks, Bruce, and thanks so much for holding that space for us this whole year. It's been an important one to hold. Kia ora. Did I hear Gillian was ready to contribute?
Oh, the little hand on Gillian's screen is up.
It's funny, I can't see that. Gillian? No, she's saying no to me. That's fine, Gillian, no problem. Okay, Robin, hi.
Mute. Okay, off of mute. Yeah, so I'm in the food group, and we met last week. It was also a long time in between meetings, but there's some, I think it's exciting thing on the horizon, and that is the idea of the edible food mapping for our region, probably just starting with Nelson and Tasman. And the thing that made it very exciting is that, I'm afraid I forget her name right now, but there was a Nelson Council staff member there who said that there was actually a group within Nelson Council staff that does mapping, and that they were willing to develop software to make it easy so that we could just put the sort of GPS coordinates in. And so it was, that meeting was just last week. It was still kind of brainstorming. I hope that that's the option that we take. We talked about a lot of options. That one sounded like the most practical and easy and exciting to me. And that's supposed to be things like orchards that have been planted where people can pick, you know, come to pick your own, and community gardens and anything else that is actually on public land. We thought it would be too complicated to put people's private kind of, you can come here and get your own apples, because that would possibly change too fast. But that is something that could be considered.
It strikes me we could also consider council offering up new land that we could choose to plant and add that to the map as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, great.
Yeah, I asked, there was, yeah, so there was, I forgot her name too. Not Yuli. Anyway, so there's someone from Tasman District Council there. And I asked, does Richmond actually have community gardens? And the answer was not actually very forthcoming. So I'm not even sure there's any real community gardens in the Richmond area. So that's something to find out more about.
Thanks, Robin.
Yeah, I could say something about urban development too,
Oh, sure. Great. Thanks.
Yeah. So we met last week too. Rachel Sanson has been leading that group very, very well. I don't think she's going to continue leading once we're in the new kind of format. One thing that we talked about, probably the most important thing, was the Nelson Council plans for the library. And Barb, who I see, Barb Robson, was there and gave us some kind of insights into the idea of deferring, as in our submissions, putting in that we'd like to defer this decision until the central government gives guidance about how such kind of large scale projects should be tackled, you know, considering everything is changing so fast. So that was very helpful. Yeah, that's it right now.
Thanks, Robin.
Yeah.
Okay, have we missed any topic groups who have someone present?
Yeah.
Great, thanks, Julie.
Schools group. So we just had a meeting yesterday, our first little schools group meeting, with one possible new member, first name Jonathan, not sure about the last name. I think he's keen to keep coming. So Sally's going to be sending the strategic communications group our, I guess it's the minutes, or it's our, I think she was writing down what our objectives, we were going through what our objectives were as the group. That was one thing. A couple of other things we ended up talking about was getting, Sally is talking about getting someone like the Cawthron Institute to run competitions with schools as a way to get them looking at their own carbon footprint. Because that seemed to be one of the main things that most of the participants in the group are keen on, getting schools to look at their carbon footprint. I'm really keen in being there as a support person for students who want to take be more activist, climate activists, and supporting them with anything they might like to do. And yeah, what else was there?
That's great, thank you.
Yeah, a little bit more. I'm not sure if this was really our role, but we talked about asking people trying to get people in the forum that aren't engaging in these meetings more involved by sending out a message to them, trying to find out whether they've got any skills that could be used within the group, or contacts, because often contacts into businesses or with people in schools can be really useful if you've got good relationships, you know, anyone in the community that you might have relationships with, and collate that onto a spreadsheet, which I've offered to do the mundane job of taking in the emails and doing that. But anyway, you'll get the minutes from the meeting shortly, I expect.
Thanks, sounds really interesting start. Okay, and Jill, over to you. You're muted. You're on mute, Jill.
I could do land use unless anybody else is around who wants to comment on it.
Please do.
Probably a month or more ago, they had a meeting with Beef and Lamb and Frontiera, which was really good. It was about sort of how do we breach the urban-rural divide and so on. And I thought that went really well. And then more recently, there was a specific land use meeting. And we're talking about active catchment groups, like there's one at Mootry and there's one at Motueka, with doing, well, during the winter, doing tree planting and things like that to help with that. And Olivia, I think,
volunteered her family's farm as a place that we might do a planting, which I thought was really good. And being Olivia, she was very sort of humble and saying, well, I'm sure there's other people who'd like planters. But I think it would be really good if, especially some of our more town people have opportunities to do planting in a real farm. But also I gather the Mootry catchment area has got quite a lot of lifestyle block people, so actually who might equally like some planting done on their place. But I think to start off with some planting at a farm and then just strengthen those networks which are happening. Now that's all on that. Can I just put one slightly controversial thing out there, and I don't want to be blacklisted for this, but I'm taking a lot of interest in the rural and the urban development one, and I'm sorry I couldn't make it to the meeting, and the whole library development thing, which I think is very, very interesting. And I talked to Kate Fulton at the Climate Forum, and I can really understand where they stand on that. And what I like to put out is people's thoughts on, for so long, us as environmentalists have been hammering on closed doors. Now the doors are opening a bit, and you know how when you push at a door and someone opens it, you end up flat on your face in the corridor. And I'm just wondering if we, one, need to give more support and validity and validate councils, businesses, all these people who are starting to make these changes, even though we may feel, well, why didn't they do it ages ago? But also some of us older environmentalists have been pushing so hard that we've had to be fairly adversarial, and maybe we need to learn to actually gently and graciously open doors more than hammering on them.
What a wonderful question, Jill. Jessie, did you get that one? Awesome, you're amazing. Thank you both. We'll carry that on into one of our future meetings. Great question.
Can I just chip in for 1 second on that, Jill, and just really, really appreciate you bringing that up. And I had a really interesting discussion yesterday with Peter Lawless, who helps to facilitate our leadership group. And he introduced me to the concept of Overton windows, which is this concept that sometimes some windows are open and sometimes some just aren't. And like, it made me think, Peter, when you were talking about doing submissions and things on transport and you're not sure where else to go now, doing all that submission work means that you're ready and you have the ideas there when that window starts to open for council to actually come to you and say, actually, yeah, we now have some funding or the openness to explore that. So I think just to remember that all our groups are going to be at different stages with that, depending on the wider context. At the moment, there's a lot of tree planting funding and things going on, which is amazing. So let's get behind that. And yeah, just not to get discouraged that we can't do it all at once.
Thank you. I can see some hands up. What I'm going to do though is press pause on this conversation because I think it deserves a lot of time and consideration that we don't have today. I think it's something we need to consider strategically and take a really good considered look at. And I'm also aware we have some groups who haven't yet shared where they're at, including some of the functioning of the forum groups. Yeah, we'll just park this conversation until a later date.
That's fine, Julie. I just wanted to throw it in.
I really appreciate you having done that, Jill. It's really cool. Okay, so which other groups haven't yet shared and would like to? And then we'll break into our breakout rooms to discuss our new groups.
Can I just, I'm not wanting to say something about that conversation.
Great, Sharon.
wanting to add something about the groups and particularly Te Ao Māori group, because Anne Dickinson, who was one of the original, I think she Te Wehi, there was a very small group in that very first hui. She joined our group. I hope she'll be a permanent member of it last meeting, and we, along with Bruce, you know, wanted to carry forward, you know, some of that work and maybe forge connections with, you know, the Te Tauihu intergenerational strategy where, you know, that Wakatu Incorporation's doing. So yeah, that's just a little, you know, add on to our waste and, well, buy, make waste group.
Sounds great, thank you. I'm aware that when Anne and Te Wehi were working with others at the beginning, that group dissolved in order to use what capacity there was within our Te Tauihu iwi to engage at a leadership and governance level. But it's those representatives who've asked us to hold a space for such a time when iwi have more capacity to engage in the forum. So that at the moment is a placeholder until the iwi have more engagement than they have room for in the leadership group, and to create a kind of supporting structure for them. But yes, that doesn't absolutely not mean that no groups should do anything with Te Ao Māori. Please do. It is a core part of our kaupapa is to bring Te Ao Māori into the normal part of being in Te Tauihu. So yeah, great. Thank you.
Julie, I could update
David,
you.
please, yes.
Yeah. So we're pleased to say that we have another paid person who's going to join the forum to work on communications, and she's starting next week, and her name is Anya Byrne. Some of you might know her because, you know, our community is small, and Anya's been working on various communication roles, but recently working at Habitat amongst other things. And so the reason for having her on board is obviously with the arrival of the book, we need to put a lot of communication efforts into this. All right, hello, the co-chair. Anyway, the second point I would mention briefly is that we had a workshop a while ago with the climate action team to facilitate how we could communicate the book. And I thought that was an interesting example of two teams meeting together, two groups meeting together to work out a common solution, where we facilitated over 2 hours what actions we could take. And this produced a thing called the Climate Action Book Communications Plan. One aspect of that communications plan is we not only need to work with Joanna's group, but every other group on the communication of the book. And so we're looking forward to meeting with each of the other groups to provide support, any work that any group chooses to do to better communicate the book and what's in it. So I'll be approaching different coordinators on that. The third thing, so we feel that these workshops are worthwhile. We've got Anya on board. The third thing I would say is that we have introduced a thing on the website called Outreach. And this is to try out a way to get more two-way conversation between forum members and friends in the community on a certain range of topics, not on everything. So we look forward to seeing how that goes, and any contributions you would like to make in the outreach section are welcomed. Thank you.
Thank you, David. So that's the Stratcoms team. Would the STAR group or the Admin and Finance group like to share? Go on, Joe. You're looking poised. Go for it.
I'm thinking David might wish to comment on the STAR group. Do you want to say something about the STAR group, David?
Yeah. Brief comment. Primarily at the moment, we're trying to figure out where we go in the new structure, the same as everybody else is. But having been unchanged in that sense from where we were before, The main thing that we're thinking right now is how much of what we have the ability to do fits into the space that we're now creating, and how do we best contribute to it. And I think we've had a lot of things that we've kicked around in the last couple of Star Group meetings, but we haven't yet come to any clear conclusion as to where we should put our energy so that it's most effectively used, which seems to be the most significant question to ask. We've got a certain amount of time and a certain amount of energy to bring to bear. What is going to make the biggest difference to climate action issues in our region? And we're not clear about that yet, but we're still working on it. Next Tuesday, hopefully, will be something that will move us further down the track. That's about as far as we've got right now.
Thanks, David. That was a wee bit quiet for some people. So did I hear right that you are trying to figure out your way forwards as a group with this new structure and how best to use the energy that your members have? Yeah, Joe, did you want to add something?
May I add a thought there? One of the things that we talked about was keeping our eye on the most important new bits of scientific evidence about climate change that are appearing. Everyone knows there's tons that's appearing all the time. Some of it is of high significance, and we're kind of keeping track of those newly emerging understandings of the climate and ways of curbing emissions. And if the forum wanted, we could periodically report to the forum in either hui or otherwise on these, just keeping our understanding sharp on the arena in which we're working.
Lovely, thank you, Joe. So I think our last group is the admin and finance group who's here today. I wonder if somebody would speak to our recent meeting that isn't me.
I can, unless you want to, David or Jenny.
You do it. You know more about money than the rest of us.
Thanks, Jessie.
So the admin and finance team met on Monday. The most pressing issue for this group at the moment is securing funding for the forum to take us past August this year. We've been fortunate to have support from Nelson City Council. We've also received, through Tasman Environmental Trust, a grant from the Rata Foundation, 20,000 for 3 years, which we're incredibly grateful for. And Tasman District Council have provided support with paying for the Headingley Centre for our last hui. But at this stage, we don't have any, aside from the 20,000 from Rata, we don't have any additional funding that continues past August this year. So that's a really urgent priority for us. David Bardell has been working on a funding strategy for us and has offered to help with writing funding applications, but this is really just an open call for anyone who has experience in writing funding applications or connections with funders. We'd really, really love some more support in that, because obviously without funding, the forum will struggle to continue, at least in the form that it is in at the moment. That's just for basic things like running the website, paying for my role as coordinator of the forum, and paying for venues for the hui, catering, those kinds of things. It's nothing too extreme, but it does all take money. So yeah, that's where we're at. And if you want to help with that, please contact me and I can put you in touch with David if you're a funding person. Yeah, that's it. Did you want to add something, David? I can't actually hear you.
Yes. Even if you're not a funding person, we're willing to teach you.
Yes, thank you, David. That's an important clarification. It is about people with just a little bit of time to write an application with support from the team. You know, that's where we're at really. In terms of council's further support, both long-term plans indicate continued participation in and support of the forum. And our submission is going to outline what we need in terms of operational funding from both councils. But of course, we won't know if we have that for some time to come, and it seems a little bit risky to rely on it. So we're trying to be proactive in sourcing other funding in the acknowledgement that we're unlikely to get everything we ask for, and we're not even asking for project-based funding from councils yet. So plenty to be going on with, and the more people we can get involved in that, the better.
Question, Deb's here, just a question with that. What is our kind of annual budget requirement if we've done a budget? What's the kind of annual sum that we're roughly looking at, baseline that's not taking into account project work we might wish to do? Is there a rough kind of figure?
Yes, there is. We have a minimum and an ideal operational budget outside of the project-based things, and they're more than we would like. I don't have the numbers off the top of my head.
We need at least 120,000, which seems like a lot of money, to do the things that Julie's mentioned. I mean, these venues and all the things related to them, even when we get free venues, all of these things add up over a year.
Yeah.
Plus the time of Jessie and so on, which are essential to the forum in its current operational mode.
Thanks, David. And I think we double that with our ideal budget in terms of enough staffing to support our groups, basically. Yeah. Okay, we could talk about the budget for a very long time, but I urge anyone who's interested, instead of carrying on the conversation now, to hook in with the Admin and Finance next group meeting, where we'll be talking about this in a lot of depth. So thank you. Let's move on with our agenda, which is starting to think about these new groups and what they might be working towards. We had in our draft agenda, or the agenda that went out, a conversation about the leadership of those groups. And I think what we'll say for now is that we are going to need leaders of these groups, but we're not going to make a decision on who those leaders are today. But before we move on from that leadership topic, we'll do a couple of things. And the first is to ask Jessie to introduce the leadership training that is available to anyone who is keen. Because what we're not asking for is experienced leaders or topic experts, but people who have the time and the inclination to engage with convening a group. So that's the first thing that we'll do, is to say what training there is available for anyone who is keen to step up to that role. And then we'll do a quick chat storm that identifies what kind of person we want to have convening our groups. And then we'll move on. So Jessie, over to you.
Thanks, Julie. Yeah, so Peter Lawless, who's a professional facilitator, and you probably all know him, he's really generously offered to run some leadership training for forum members. We're starting off this evening, actually, 5:30 till 7:30 at the boardroom at Wakatu House. And there's 3 modules, one this Wednesday, one next Wednesday, and one on the 12th of May. And they all build on each other. The idea of this training is for anyone, not just those who want to step into those positional leadership roles, like coordinating a group, but actually anyone in the forum who wants to build on their ability to contribute as a leader. In an organisation like the forum, relationships is really at the core of what we do. And so having the ability to lead is really, really important. And you don't have to have a title that says I'm a leader to be a leader. So that's really what we're trying to support here. It's obviously really quite challenging mahi that we do, and having the ability and the skills and some resources you can use to help with that are really important. So we want to support that. And that's the idea behind this training. So please don't be put off by seeing that it's leadership training and thinking, I'm not a leader, I can't do that, because it's much broader than just a positional leadership kind of thing. And the training is really actually about identifying what is the forum, how do we operate, where do we fit, and what's my role in that. So it's pretty big picture kind of stuff, and it's pretty crucial that we have people who are really clear on all of that to lead the forum and keep us moving forward. So with that in mind, if you do happen to be free this evening and you are keen to join us, just drop me a line afterwards, give me as much notice as possible so I can make sure we have a book for you. We've got about 5 or 6 spaces that we could open up for any last minute people. Julie Cave, have you got a question, or is your hand just still up from earlier?
That's just still up from earlier. I'm not sure how to put it down. I'll try pushing it, shall I?
Cool. No, that's all good. I think that was...
I don't know how to get it off, sorry.
That's okay.
That's up from before.
I think that's everything I wanted to say, but just also that we do plan to run the training again later in the year. So if you are interested in joining it later on, just also let me know, and I'll pop you on the wait list and keep you updated about that.
Thanks, Jessie. Really exciting opportunity to have you and Peter taking that on. But did anyone have any questions for Jessie about that leadership training? Kelly?
Yes. Do you want younger people?
We want a mix. There's no age limit on this.
Okay. I would like to do it, but later in the year.
Okay. Thanks, Kelly.
Thanks. Okay, so let's do a couple of chat storms. First one, thinking about the different roles within the groups that are useful. So if you have played any kind of role in your group, or there has been a role that has not been filled in your group that you think really would have been useful, then just pop it into the chat, just the title that you think would suit that role. Just to try and together come up with an idea of what kind of roles need to be filled within the groups to make sure that they function well. So a leader, a convener we've already talked about, but who else is there in a group that has some kind of role that helps the group function really well? So that's our first chat storm question, and then we'll look a little bit more at that convener role. Okay, 1 minute starts now. Remember to just hold on to them. And then we'll do them all in a few more seconds. Okay, hit send. Like they can't think of anything, it's fair enough. But between us, we've got quite a few different ideas. So if you have a look through those roles and think, oh yeah, that role suits me, that's something I kind of tend to do, even if I hadn't really been thinking about that as a role, then just think about that. Oh yeah, that's something that we didn't have that would have been really useful. Then think about that as well. Oh, there's something missing, I'll just check that one down. Please add to the list, feel free. And then here's our next chat storm. So when you think about somebody who convenes the group, what does that mean? What kind of roles or tasks do you expect that person to do? Given that there's a whole bunch of other roles that we've just identified, which ones of those are going to be played by a convener, do you think, if any? And what other functions do you think a convener needs to play to do their role effectively? So this is just trying to nut out the detail of what does it mean? If I was to put my hand up to convene one of these groups, then what would I be putting my hand up for? So if you could just list down maybe the top 1 or 2 or 3 things that you think are essential to effectively be a convener, whatever that might be. It might be a characteristic, might be a task. Just go ahead, so that together we've created a kind of broad overview of what being a convener means. Okay, 1 minute starts now. And remember to hold on to your answers. Okay, a few more seconds. And then press go. So we just have a look through what we've just had. Holding the space, building consensus, encouraging people, delegating, spreading the load between the members, creating a good vibe, regular meetings, venues, delegates who's doing what, communication, facilitation. So that's the kind of role that we're talking about. We're not talking about doing all of the work of the group. We're not talking about necessarily being a spokesperson for the group, but definitely a point of contact for people. We're not talking about making all the decisions by yourself in that kind of leadership role. We're talking about being a way, a mechanism for the group to work together. That's really what it's about in my mind. So if you know anyone in your group that you think would be excellent in that role, whether that's yourself, that's great, or someone else that you have seen work in your group, whether as a leader or not, and you think that they would be really great at that, and then it would be great if you would get in touch with them and ask them to put themselves forwards if they have the capacity. Even if it's somebody who hasn't been in that group, but who works in a similar space and might be willing to. Now, this is a time to use our networks to bring people in. If your group has not been working particularly regularly anyway. So I'm just going to leave that there, I think, with the acknowledgement that if you need any questions answered, or if anyone you contact needs any questions answered, then I'm here. And I'm very happy to be the person that gets pointed to. Feel free to send my email to anyone you think would be great, and they can get in touch with me. If it's yourself, feel free to contact, to let Jessie know and to let me know, so that we can take that into the next meeting, which is where we'll decide who's going to be those people, those conveners of each group. But unless anybody feels there's anything burning about leadership of the group that we haven't said, then we'll open some breakout rooms and begin to think about where each of our groups are going to take action this year. David.
Kind of aware of the fact that my microphone may be a little bit quiet, so please tell me if I'm not talking loudly enough. There's one interesting aspect of all of this, which I think I haven't heard discussed yet. I've tried raising it a couple of times and it's always been pushed out a wee bit into the future. The question of how these groups are labeled sounds like a simple thing, but actually what we have at the moment in terms of the topics that are there, like for example, how we move ourselves and our stuff around, is a lot larger label than, for example, transport. Yeah. So it seems to me that at some point somebody is going to have to deal with the question of what these new groupings are called. If they're associated with the longer label as we used it in the climate action book, that's fine. But the long label is too unworkable to be reasonable. And therefore, at some point, some action maybe of each group is going to have to be to say, what do we call ourselves? And I'm not sure where that fits into the scheme of things, but I think it's important. I just thought I'd throw it in.
Thanks, David. So am I hearing that you think the scope of each group is too big to be workable?
No, just very simple. The name.
The name is too long to be useful. Yeah, okay, that's interesting, thank you. That is certainly a question that we can raise as the groups move forwards. For now, that's just taken from the book for clarity of how the groups fit with the climate action book that we've got, but certainly that is a question that we can raise. Thank you. I didn't mention about the leadership group as separate to the conveners of the topic groups. That is a conversation for next month. And I don't really feel like going into it now. That's okay. Just to say then, I guess that there are 8 seats within the leadership group of the forum, alongside council seats, iwi seats, chairs, and Peter Lawless as facilitator, that will be filled by people from the forum. That is as much as we know right now. And what that looks like is the main subject of the next meeting. So what I guess is important for now is that by putting your hand up to convene a topic group does not mean that you are also putting your hand up to be on the leadership group necessarily. Okay, any other questions, comments about leadership before we move on? Jo?
Just want to emphasize what you said about shoulder tapping. People in the forum are not self-promoters. And just 2 things actually, that people should not hesitate to identify themselves as a good person for the job. And shoulder tapping is really important to let someone know that you think they'd be good in this role.
Absolutely. The reason that I put that I ended up here was because somebody shoulder tapped me. And while I'm talking about me, if you haven't heard, I'm not going to be putting my name forward as chair in the May hui, because I believe that my skill set is on strategic thinking and planning, and we have done that work. And we now need somebody who is fully embedded in action and outreach and building relationships. So consider shoulder tapping people about that as well. Thank you. I won't say anything more about that now. So let's think about our topic-based groups and where we're going to go, because each of these groups is going to be responsible for a few things. And it may be that you remember from our weaving plan that there are 4 action categories on our weaving plan. And it's time to start thinking about what those are going to look like. So I'm going to invite you within topic-based groups shortly to think about what does connecting the dots mean for this group in the next 12 months. That might look like outreach. It might look like mapping what's already there and finding the gaps. It might look like all kinds of things, but what does it look like for your group, connecting the dots? Second one, what does grassroots action look like for you? It might look like taking a piece of the climate action book that isn't really being worked on just now and starting to make that happen. It might look like taking an opportunity that you've seen out there in the world and running with it in the name of the Climate Forum. Might look like all kinds of things, but it's about getting some of the action that we need to happen done. The third thing is about education. So what kind of an approach to education do you think this region needs in the next 12 months in the context of your topic? And lastly is advocacy. So how do we work with governance organisations? What are the key priorities for working with governance organisations at central, local government, iwi, any other governance level? What kind of advocacy role would your group like to play for your topic? So those are the 4 things. And what I'm going to ask for is that each of the groups comes back half an hour from now with an idea for each of those. And that's a big ask, but hopefully what we'll see is the scope of those categories and begin to get some idea about where the gaps might be and what patterns there are that we can begin thinking about as functioning of the forum groups later, the kinds of things that they might need to support. Jessie, yeah.
I just want to make clear that you might already be working in your group on a particular project like the edible foods mapping, and that might fall into 3 or 4 of those categories. So you're not necessarily having to come up with 4 separate actions, but it's more about thinking of that bigger picture of, as the forum, we're wanting to do these things of connecting dots and educating and advocacy, and then looking at what you're already doing or what ideas you've had in the past and how they might fit with that framework, really.
Yeah, thanks, Jessie. That was really important. So all that update you gave us earlier on that had lots of actions already going on, those are included, absolutely, and they may absolutely fall under several of the categories. So just see what you come up with. You've got half an hour to consider what they might look like and just to say hi to each other and reconnect after what might have been some time. If you're in the functioning of the forum group, this is your chance to listen to how you might be needed over the next little while as well. So you can feed that back to your group and begin to think about what your groups might look like after this session. Thank you to everybody who's had to pop off earlier. And thank you to everybody who stuck around. Okay, Jessie, how are we doing with the breakout rooms? Are they ready to go?
Yeah, so what I'll do is I'll open the breakout rooms and you just select the one that you want to join. They're all named based on those topics from the climate action book. So you should hopefully just be able to join a room. If you find yourself in a room with no one else, because we are a reasonably small group, you can leave that room and then come back in here to the main room and then choose another one. So I'll open them now, and if you have any problems, I'll stay in this room. Let me know and I can help you out. Are you receiving a message letting you join a room now? Oh, darn. Okay. This is not going to work as I thought.
If you click more down the bottom of your screen and then join breakout room, they're there available for you. So more and then join breakout room. And then they're all there and you just click the one that you would like to engage with.
I don't have more anywhere.
You don't have a more?
No.
Hold on. Okay. If you don't have a more, then click breakout rooms.
Where's that?
Don't have that.
I know. I need to pull up participants.
I
need to pull up participants, maybe.
Here. Got it.
No. Still can't find it. Dang,
So what I can see is security, participants, polls, chat, share screen, record, breakout rooms, reactions.
Where did you find it?
Okay.
But that might be because I'm co-host.
Okay, let's just go through. Joanna, what group would you like to join?
Transport, moving ourselves and stuff around.
Cool. Anne, which group would you like to join?
It's the waste. I can't, yeah.
Barb, which group would you like to join? Waste, okay.
What
Kelly, you're also waste. Yeah. Chris,
The natural world carbon storage one.
Gotcha. David, which one would you like to be in?
Transport.
Cool. Debs, the natural world one.
Thank you.
Yep. Fiona.
Natural world.
Cool. Jill. I'm going to put her in waste. Gillian. Which group would you like to be in?
A natural world.
Excellent. Jack. Which group?
Energy.
Excellent. Barb, which one would you like to be in?
Waste.
Cool. You'll just get a window popping up inviting you to join. Jenny, which one would you like to be in?
The live and work one.
Robin?
I could do live and work or what we eat and grow.
Excellent. Leslie, which group would you like to be in? No. Okay. Peter, which group would you like to join?
Natural.
Excellent. Sharon? Tord? Which group would you like to join?
Do we still have a science group?
Is it just the topic groups, Tord?
Yeah, so which topic group would you like to talk with about how the science group can support them?
Or the region or the sequestration of carbon in forest, is that in the natural world or where is that?
Yeah, I'll pop you in that one. Thanks, Tord.
All
right. Yuki, which group would you like to be in?
Transport, please.
Excellent, thank you. Who have we still got? And I've assigned you to the group. You should have received a little pop-up. Oh, you have? Yeah. Have you clicked it?
No.
Oh, okay. So if you click that, you can join the group.
Thank you.
Okay, I unmuted myself.
Excellent. Thanks, Leslie. Which group would you like to join?
I think is that the waste group? Is that the new
Yes, I can pop you in that one.
Resource and waste.
Yep, there we go. You should see something on your screen asking you to join. And Sharon, hopefully you've seen it pop up on your screen as well, an invitation to join that group.
Cool.